So, the topic for discussion today is things to know before you try water culture method with orchids. There are certain things that I made mistakes with myself when I first started, and I learned from that, and also just from talking to so many people on my channel and questions that I receive. There are a few things that you need to know before you start, and that's going to save you a lot of time and trouble. The first thing that I advise is if you're a beginning orchid grower, this is not the easiest growing method. It requires a lot of experience and skill with orchids because you need to know what you're looking at. Secondly, what I advise everyone to do is try water culture on one orchid. Not your favorite orchid, but a new orchid that you can replace easily. I don't recommend placing orchids in water culture that have been in your collection for a long period of time. I tried that and they just did not adapt easily, and I had to put them back in the media that they had been in for so long. So older orchids become accustomed to their growing media. So just keep those in your collection in whatever media they've been getting used to, or they have been used to for so long, and you're going to save yourself a lot of time. And these are two of my phals that have done the best in water culture, and I bought them and brought them home immediately from the store, pretty much, and converted these over to water culture. These were not in my collection for very long before I converted them, and I could see a big difference between the ones that I started new and the ones that I had for a while. The ones that I had in my collection for 2 or 3 years, they just did not seem to like water culture. So just a heads up on that. Next, be aware that water culture takes vigilance. I watch my water culture orchids very carefully. I don't just place them in water culture and then leave them alone. I have to decide what water level they like. If they're not happy with that, then I have to adjust that. So I have to know what to change and when to change, and it does require intuition and skill. A common mistake that I see growers make in this method is that they're not cleaning the root system thoroughly enough of media. If the media won't come off of the roots when you're bare rooting this orchid, then that media will rot and the roots along with it when you place it in water culture. There have been several times I've tried to convert or bare root an orchid and the media just won't come off. There's stubborn pieces of bark or there's little patches of moss that just won't come off. That orchid isn't even a candidate for water culture. I place that back in fresh media, the same type of media that it was in. Another mistake is not cleaning the stem of debris. By the stem, I mean this part up in here that gets debris on it, such as old leaves and old media. That stem needs to be cleaned as well. So if your roots and your stem isn't clean enough, it will cause rot in your water culture, and it will stunt the root growth from there on out. The roots will just not grow in the water. You will have continual root rot, that slimy stuff, and the squishy roots. Molds will grow, not the white fluffy mold. The mold that's gray and black will start appearing on your stem and on your roots, and that will just continue to lead to more and more rot. Cleaning the stem of your orchid is very important. I do have a video on that where I show you how to do that. It's a step that really is a must. I did water culture for a while without cleaning the stems, and it just kept developing mold around the stem. And then the new roots that would come out would be stunted. So I learned that the hard way. Another commonly asked question is, okay, I've got all of the media off of the roots. What do I do now? What do I spray the roots with? I used to spray with hydrogen peroxide, and I stopped doing that. After I bare root the orchid, all I do is I just spray it off with water. I let that dry overnight, and then I place it in water culture the next morning. The thing is you're still going to get little parts of debris from the roots in your water that first few days. That's not a problem. You just refresh that water, just dump that old water out and refresh it with new. That's normal. But after about a week or so, you're going to notice that your water is a lot cleaner, and that's what you're after. That's what you're looking for. Okay, so let's go over what is full water culture. Full water culture is when 1/3 of the roots are in the water most of the time. What I do is I mark my vases right here and right here. That's the water level for these two phals right here. What I do is I let them sit in this water for about 3 or 4 days. I drain the water, and I do keep some of it back. I like to inoculate that water with some of its home water. And I usually hold back between 20 to 50% of the water, and then fill up the rest of the way with fresh water, because they do need fresh water. So what I'll do is I'll let them sit in this water for about 4 or 5 days. Then I'm going to give it a dry out day. Full water culture, you still need wet, dry cycles with your orchids. That's how they grow in any method, whether they grow in bark or moss or if they grow in water culture. They do need those dry days, so that's when the roots will grow. Okay, now semi-water culture is when 2/3 of the roots, about right here, would be semi-water culture on this one. You're going to let that set in the water for 2 days, and then you're going to drain the vase and let it set out dry for about 4 or 5 days. Know what your roots look like when they need water. They'll turn really silvery. So that is the difference between full water culture and semi-water culture. And I'll get to one last question. I'm asked really often. I have dendrobiums and cattleyas. What type of water culture do they grow best in? I grow my dendrobiums in semi-water culture, and they do really very well. Also, cattleyas need to be in semi-water culture because they need that extra dry out time. So I hope you all are just having a wonderful day and be highly favored, deeply loved, and greatly blessed. And we'll see you all next time.